Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing So You Want to Play Khmer. And if you guys aren't familiar with the series, basically I'm going to take a look at one civ in depth and show you guys how to play it in theory, taking a look at its technology tree, the different options it has available, and then also playing a game at the top level, going over it and showing you guys how the civ plays out in practice at the highest level. And the goal is for you guys to get a good sense of how the game is played with that civ and kind of the ins and outs of the civ before trying to pick it up yourselves. So strap in and enjoy the video. So let's take a look here. Today we have the Khmer, and we'll start as usual with going over the maps quickly. I would describe Khmer as a really versatile civ these days on land maps. Water maps, they're not particularly amazing, but I mean, I think they're kind of passable on hybrid maps, for example. But on land maps, they're very versatile. They actually have Arbalest. Although they're lacking Thumb Ring, they have a really good eco bonus. They have a really good early game bonus since they don't need like buildings to actually advance to the next age or to make other buildings. So like Blacksmith for Seed Shop, Barracks for Stable, etc. And so they have a lot of cool things like that that allow them to play a lot of different style of land maps, like closed maps and open maps. So I would say on pretty much any land map, they are definitely passable. And on Arabia, I would say they're kind of pretty higher mid tier at this point, maybe even high tier. I would probably put them in my top 10 for Arabia just because of how smooth they are. And then the more open the map is, the better they become because their farming bonus is amazing and they're really good in late game with the cavalry spam. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at what Khmer has to offer now in the tech tree and see how this is playing out. So Khmer described as a siege and elephant civilization. Now I would say that this is a bit of a misleading title because although those are its best options, those options only come in the late game. So I would recommend if you want to pick up the civ, come into it with an open mind and really understand the different options you have available to you and understand the different transitions you can make throughout the game to then end up on that big late game comp that you can get into, which I would definitely talk about. So no buildings required to advance to the next age or to unlock other buildings. That's the bonus that I talked about, one of their best ones. Meaning if you normally with a civ need a barracks to make a stable in feudal age, with Khmer you can skip the barracks and just go make it stable directly in feudal age and save all that wood for the barracks and build time. Very strong bonus. One of the best bonuses in the game. That's not a direct eco bonus in my opinion. Farmers don't require mills and town centers to drop off food. This is where their eco bonus comes in. Very versatile. I'll talk a bit more in depth about it later. Battle elephants move 10% faster. That actually got nerfed recently from 15%, I believe, but still a nice bonus. I would say more of a late game thing though. And villagers can garrison in houses is another really nice bonus to have on your side. So they right off the bat feel like a bit of a odd civ. They don't get any clear-cut bonuses. So you have to kind of get creative with them. But if you use these properly, they can be very powerful, especially in combination with each other. I'll explain once again a little later when we get into the game. The Unicoon is a ballista elephant. It's described as a mounted scorpion. It counts as a siege unit, and how you upgrade it is you get cavalry armor from the blacksmith, siege engineers, and chemistry for its damage and range. And that's pretty much it for the main upgrades. Then you have the unique tech, the golden crown, that also gives it a second shot. And then you obviously get bloodlines and husbandry from the stable. So it counts as kind of like a mounted unit and also a siege unit, a scorpion, as far as upgrades go, which is described here as a mounted scorpion. Unique techs, tusk swords, the silver crown, battle elephants +3 attack. Pretty good in all-in castle situation or in late game. Double crossbow, Bliss elephants and scorpions fire 2 projectiles. This makes their late game very strong. And then finally, team bonus +1 range on scorpions. This doesn't apply to Bliss elephants though, but it gives the scorpions extra range, and that's a very good bonus for the team, especially if you combine that with Celts, for example. But as you guys all know by now, team bonus affects you in a 1v1 because you are considered to be on your own team. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the tech tree real quick, and I'll explain a bit more about how you want to be using these bonuses. But starting off with the range, you're actually going to see they have a pretty nice range tech, only missing Thumb Ring, which is a pretty big deal in late Castle Age, early Imp situations. But Arbalest alone is not a bad option, and I would say that pretty much just avoid going Heavy Cav Archer, but the rest is fine from their Archer range. Heavy Cav Archer is the unit that needs Thumb Ring the most, in my opinion. Although Cavalry Archer in Castle Age, if you want to just make a few, can be very fine as well. No problems there. Barracks is pretty lackluster, but they have Halberdier, which is pretty much all that really matters. Champion line is not very good. No supplies and no champions, and also no squires. So only go Halberdier if you really need it. And then for your stable units, you have a pretty good mix. You have the Hussar fully upgraded, which is amazing. I like that one. Cavalier, which is a really good early in power spike. And then the Elite Battle Elephant, which is kind of like their strength, the strong power unit that you want to get into late game, especially in team games if you want to overrun people. Highly recommend going into this. But I would say that Battle Elephant in general is not really a unit that you want to go into like early Castle Age because it's very expensive and it's slow. And mobility is king in early Castle Age because, you know, of all the movements around the map. So I would say that this is more of a late Castle Age option, and this would be more of like a mid to late Imp option. This is too expensive even in early Imp to afford too many of them in the elite upgrades. So I would definitely say like Cavalier opening, Hussar spam, mixing with a few elephants, or just like a pure elephant power play in Castle Age to kill your opponent are some options that you can go for. And then for the Siege, it's actually pretty good. You have Siege Rem, which is a really good tool to push. Onagers is not bad because you have Siege Engineer, so it's pretty solid. But then their main unit here is the Scorpion that starts off with an extra range. And Scorpions with 8 range in Castle is actually one of the best tools to actually start your pushes. It's good for pushing and defense. And in my opinion, this bonus alone allows Khmer to keep up with the really strong archer civs. Like Britons, this is their answer to Britons. The Scorpions with the same range as the crossbow. This is their answer to Mayans, who can mass a lot of archers. You go, few knights, and then you also get a few scrims mixed in, and the scrims can also outrange scorpions, and the scorpions can also outrange the mangonels, which is really cool. So that +1 range bonus is really what gives the civ flexibility and army to compete with the top archer civs, in my opinion. It doesn't really play too heavily into cav civs, but it's pretty good against pikemen if that situation arises as well in Castle Age. So one of the better tools, keep an eye on it. Blacksmith fully teched except that plate mail armor. But that's okay. Like, we're not going to really be depending a lot on infantry. And in the cases where you need halberdier, you're not going to be making halberdier versus archer units more often than not. So not a big deal. You do get all the archer armor. So scrims late game are fully upgraded minus stun ring, which doesn't really affect them too much. So again, archers, range units for Khmer in late game are very solid. Do not turn your back to them. Or whatever, you know what I mean. Don't ignore them if it's the case. If it's a good situation for them. Water, pretty mediocre. I mean, you're missing shipwright, so late game is not great. Early game is pretty good. You have bracer, so you can manage, but it's not a water civ. Going to the university, Siege Engineer is the main one. You can get Scorpions with 9 range, combining this with a team bonus plus the base of 7. 9 range Scorpions are very, very deadly in the late game. Highly recommend. That's like the composition you want to end up with more often than not, although it is quite expensive. So I will talk about that a little bit more in the game as well. And then and as far as like the, towers, you have building HP upgrades, but no bomber tower, and you have keep, so something to consider. Elite Bliss Elephant. So this costs 100 food and 80 golds, and like we said earlier, it's a mounted Scorpion. It's really good in mass and in the super late game, but it's not good in like a bunch, like 4 or 5. It's not going to do a whole lot, and its biggest weakness is probably halberdier, unless you have a huge mass of it that you can melt halberdier. And then the other weakness is probably like monks, I would say. Monks from a distance can be really, really strong against it. And then just like archer units that can outrange it because it only has 5 range, and you can't really upgrade that without Siege Engineers is another way to counter it. So it has a lot of counters. It's very situational. I recommend this as like a good late game option, but not anything other than that. And if you want to commit to it, you really want to commit everything to it. You need a huge mass of this for it to be effective. And it's more so good on closed maps like Arena and Black Forest. But on Arabia, you can pretty much never go into it. You have Hoardings, Monk Text, you have Redemption, Sanctity, so Monk Crushing and Castage is totally fine. Missing Block Punting, so Monk Crushing and Imp is not really the best play. And as far as eco bonus goes, the biggest one is Cooperation in late game to make your farms last longer, and that's really good because obviously with Khmer, you run through those farms quite quickly. So that's it for the technology tree. I've run about it about 10 minutes, which is pretty standard. Just to quickly recap all that we've covered, I would describe Khmer as a very flexible civ on land maps, and if you consider Arabia, the way you want to play it on paper is actually to make use of their early game bonus, not needing that barracks, to go for either a scout rush or an archer rush, in my opinion. You could go for a drush or men at arms, but those are kind of ineffective for the civ because you essentially miss out on a bonus. So I would say only go for men at arms or a drush if you really want to catch your opponent off guard. But if you're kind of like on the beginner level and your opponents might not know all the bonuses for your civ, I would just say keep it simple. Either go scout rush or archer rush. And if you want to do archers, you simply just have to go 20, 21, or 22 pop, whatever you feel comfortable with, and just skip the barracks and go directly with the range and try to wall up early, and then you can go straight into double range production with archers, and it's totally fine. So those are kind of like the 2 basic builds in the early game. And in the mid game, you want to play like either crossbows or cavalry units, and then try to make use of your scorpions one way or another, either to push or to defend. And if you don't need any of that, then just get your eco up, at town centers, and make use of your farm bonus. And one thing I forgot to mention, in Feudal Age, you can use your houses as a defense, Dark Age and Feudal Age, against early scout rushes and early militia or men-at-arms, or whatever the case may be. Houses is one of the best defensive tools. So for Khmer, walling up and using houses to defend is the way to go, since you don't have the spears to defend yourself. And then in the late game, you want to kind of transition into something like Scorpion Hussar, or Hussar Siege Ram, or Halberdier if you need it, I guess. They get a little bit awkward, but you have some tools available to you, and it just depends on the situation. But I would say like their main tool is the stable in late game, either Hussar or elephants to run over your opponent. And then if you need like a supporting unit, Scorpion comes to mind, or maybe Bliss elephants, but that really rarely comes up in Arabia, to be honest. So I would say like Hussar Scorpion is usually their main composition, but feel free to go like elephant rush and kill your opponents. There's a lot of tools to transition in the late game, and I'll walk you through the thought process once we take a look at the game, which doesn't get to full late game, but I will cover what could be done if it did go to late game. So let's just quickly go here, load game. So I just played this 1v1 game. I played it against Hawks, and honestly I don't really know who this guy is, but he seems pretty decent. Like he was top 100, and it seemed like a secondary account. So maybe if someone knows who he is, you can let us know in the comments below. But I'm not really streaming right now, so I have no way to know. My Pokemon blankets in the cam, whatever. Alright, so here it is, Khmer Vikings. Alright, cool. So let's take a look at this game. I'm gonna take off the scoreboard. We don't need that. And this thing you said was not the most pleasant for you guys. And scoreboard. Sorry, 1 second. Very unprofessional. Should have done this earlier. Alright, so let's take a look at this game here. I'm obviously playing in the blue as the Khmer, and my opponent is Hawks, playing in red as the Vikings. I'm going to quickly minimize this to not distract myself, and we should be good. So yeah, Khmer versus Vikings, and right off the bat, Vikings is a top tier land civ, top tier Arabia civ, and it's it kind of the strength is archers, and like the fast imp Arbalest has really good eco. I would say it's one of the top tier archer civs. So right off the bat, I'm thinking this game I want to play some sort of cavalry scorpion composition. Again, in theory, the Scorpion is your best tool against these kind of civs, so I really want to make use of that as much as possible, and we'll see how I end up doing it. So I actually feel like I have a pretty good map this game right off the bat, with a few woodlands and relatively easy wall. I just have to lure in a deer, not for any particular reason, just because when I go scouts, I like to have a deer in. Again, the build would be the exact same. In fact, the game would be the exact same had I not lured a deer. It really doesn't make a whole lot of difference, besides giving me a bit of a smoother early game. And if there's one thing I want to talk about in the early game with Khmer, is really how to set up your map so you can defend yourself in Feudal Age without having to do like huge walls. Like, I think the best defense with Khmer is actually just a full wall really early, especially against Scout Rush, so you don't have to deal with any spearman aggression. But the other way you can do it is just to get houses around your berries and wall up your woodlines. And the reason you don't want to wall up your berries is that berries, in my opinion, is one of the most awkward things to wall your villages around. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but woodline is typically a lot easier to wall around. Like, it's just a few palisades and you're walled, but berries you often have to make like an entire circle to keep everyone covered. So I like to have a couple houses on either side, and then just wall in my woodlands if needed. And then I'm completely safe in the early Feudal Age, even up to late Feudal Age. Just going to pull in my first boar here, and we can fast forward because honestly I don't really have that much to talk about. I'm just going to go for scouting. I'm scouting with some sheep, and I'm just getting my start, my start down. My idea is to open Scout Rush here. I go 3 on wood, but you do that with any build with Khmer, because even if you go archers, or any of the 2 builds I mentioned, because even if you go archers, you want to go like, the best build is like 20 pop, and then you go directly into 2 ranges, or even like 1 range. And you only go 3 on wood because you don't need the barracks, so you really save a lot of early wood. So something to consider. You could even do 2 on wood with scouts, I believe, and get away with it. So something to consider. I like to go just standard 3 on wood and go 20 pop scouts. It's such a safe opening. It's not going to win me the game, but it's not going to lose me the game. And it lets me just think of what to do after that, pretty much. So it's just a really nice way to open up nice and safe. I actually lost a sheep scouting here, by the way. He took it to the corner. Thought I'd mentioned that actually. I was scouting. I was so disappointed, man, because I wanted to see if there's any better way to wall this, and if I have any like gold here, because I hadn't seen this gold at the time. But I lost it and Had I seen this walls, maybe I could have walled like this. I ended up walling downwards, but that's okay, not a big deal. And so yeah, second lumber camp, and this is pretty standard. And at this point, like I don't really know exactly what my opponent's doing. I see him walling a lot early, so naturally I'm just scared of a fast castle. But I'm trying to keep him open and just, you know, keep my scout around here. He actually knows I'm around here now. I'm gonna slow it down now that feudal age is in. He knows I'm around here. He's going to defend, and nothing really happens in the early game. However, it's pretty smooth at home. I'm going stable, double eco upgrade right away. The Khmer start is so smooth. If I was a salesman, I'd definitely sell you on how smooth the start is for Khmer if you want to pick this up as just, you know, the civ you want to play. Because you're easily able to afford both eco upgrades. Every time you're able to afford 1 or 2 scouts right off the bat, maybe even 2, 3 scouts. I actually won the scout war there, which is quite nice. And then you also, not needing the barracks, lets you save a lot of wood to get walls down early. And as you can see, I had the 2 houses near my berries to keep myself safe in case he did a drush. I didn't really know at the time. And then now that I know that I'm safe, and now I'm mid-feudal age, I can actually just start walling again. So for those who follow my build orders, you'll know that I recommend you wall with a couple of villages in feudal age. But you don't want to really rush this with Khmer because you have that kind of buffer where you have 2 houses that can easily defend you and then some small walls. And those defend you against like men-at-arm rushes and stuff. But at this point, I know he has a stable, and so I'm able to defend with full walls since I know there's not going to be any aggression coming in. I'm trying to make things happen, as I always do with scouts. Trying to poke around. He has the spear to defend, and he is fully a wall. Like, this is the last gap he has. So at this point, I've kind of given up on doing damage to him. And I'm really just trying to think of the next step. And people ask me, when do I stop making scouts in Arabia? This is a good time. I'm stopping scout production even if I can afford more because he's fully walled and there's no potential for damage. I tried to... That was just terrible. First game of the day mistake. I had like a low HP scout that I wanted to run back, but I couldn't do it in time. That's okay. But yeah, this is a good time to stop making scouts because if I make more scouts, I can't actually get in or pressure him anywhere. And scouts attacking walls, they can always re-wall behind us. It's not a big deal. So that's the situation currently here. And I'm just really trying to keep an eye on, see if he has any more scouts. And then back home, I'm just going to full wall my base. And this is quite standard for high-level Age of Empires. I really wish walls can be nerfed to the point where they're not like the go-to full wall every feudal age. But in the meantime, I mean, there's been a little bit of action in the early game and then just walls and getting to the mid game where usually most of the action is going to go down. All right, so at this point, I have to kind of tap into the decision making. So if we consider Khmer as a civilization, I have a pretty good eco bonus. I have a lot of options, and this is another cool thing I like to do with Khmer. I realize that like I don't need a lot of wood to do anything else, so I just make a farm with a wood villager, and he doesn't have to walk anywhere. I can just make a farm right there, and then if later I wanted to have more wood, I can just take him off the farm and go to wood or go to gold or whatever. It's so flexible, this eco bonus, and it's why I like it so much. Not only do your farms work faster, you also get the food instantly, which means you don't have to force drop, which means you can produce units faster, click up faster. It's just such a good bonus. And then on top of all that, you can also do shenanigans like this where you're able to balance your eco on the fly when it comes to farms. Full walling, I'm making a blacksmith, and the reason I'm making a blacksmith is just because I'm going to need some upgrades. You don't actually need the blacksmith to click up, so if you're ever in a case where you're tight on wood, don't worry about it. Just figure out your resources for Castle Age, and then the wood can come in later. You don't need the blacksmith or the second building to click up. So Khmer are insanely smooth in the early game for these reasons. And as you can see, I'm going to hit a pretty insane castle time here. And this is honestly not even like I didn't do anything special. I just made a few scouts, and I'm going to hit castle age around 1730, 1745 maybe. And that's quite insane, to be honest, after a scout rush to be able to hit with that smooth of an eco, where I have a good amount on farms and gold, and be able to afford a 2 stable night production. So at this point, like I have the decision making, and I've actually decided what I want to do, and I'm going to take some time. I don't have to pause actually. I'm going to take some time to explain my thought process. So I know he's going to be doing a range. I've seen a range, and I know he's got a forward, a gold, and I know he's got a forward mill with a few farms, and a forward stone, and another forward gold. And I also see a hill in front. Now, I want to play Cavalry Scorpion. That was my plan from the very start. That's based on the theory. And now I find the perfect hill to play Cavalry Scorpion. If I can get a hill here, if I can get a siege trap here, and then pressure this area, it can be a really, really advantageous position for me to start pressuring. So that's exactly what I'm going to go for. I'm going to prevent him from seeing the villager. I'm breaking out. I'm going to go 2 stables, knights and siege, quite standard. I'll mix scorpions, mangonels maybe, and I'll adapt. And the thing I want to mention is like I don't necessarily have to make like 10 skirms to make 10 skirms 10 scorpions to make use of the bonus. Usually just 1 or 2 can do the trick, and if I want to add 4 or 5, maybe even up to 10, if the situation is good, then it's definitely worth it because they have the extra range. I luck out with 1 HP there, kill the scout. But really the whole point of the skirmish is so I can kill the scout so he can't find my villager forward. That's what I want to deny. I want to deny him the vision. And by the way, Vikings is a civ that has a great eco bonus. And this is a good player. Like I said, I don't know exactly who he is. So I can't praise him, you know, as to what he's known for or whatnot. But hey, he's a solid player, and Vikings is a great civ. And yet Khmer are still able to up faster based on their early game bonuses here. And with that uptime, I'm not going to have the stronger eco because he's going to have wheelbarrow and handcart once he gets to the castle edge, which is stronger than the farm bonus overall. But I'm going to have the initiative. I have an extra 30 seconds faster here. Siege workshop's down. A few knights are already out on the map here, and I'm getting +2 immediately, which I think is actually a mistake, by the way. I think that was my first decision-making error. You don't need +2 here. I think what would be better is actually adding more knights instead of the +2. Because he actually doesn't have any like archers really on the field at the moment. So I think that was kind of a big mistake for me. Maybe just getting foraging the attack and then more knights could have been good to put more pressure. Because I got +2, I'm not going to be able to afford knight production and scorpion production. So I get the 1 scorpion, and believe it or not, like this is the 1 range is going to already come up huge. So first of all, I'm forcing back the archers. Second of all, look at this absurd range. I'm able to actually deny the monastery that he's building like way into his base. And it's just like the extra range is just so nice. Like, don't get me wrong, this is not game breaking. I'm exaggerating how strong it is, but it's just such a nice feature to be able to dig so deep into my base, into my opponent's base, with just 1 unit. So again, I really think that this is one of their strongest tools in Castle Age. And then behind this, I have the option. I can either go all in, so adding like more monks, more knights, more siege, or I can just start booming and adding more town centers at home. I think the booming is the safer choice. He goes for a knight from his stable to snipe my scorpion, and that's just going to be a trade, 1 knight for a scorpion, which is totally fine because the costs are around the exact same. And that scorpion already did its job, which is to force him away and get me some damage on the stable. So overall, my push is doing exactly what it's meant to do, which is gave me map control and gave me a positional advantage. And now I'm just going to add town centers. I think he's probably going to add town centers faster because he didn't invest into a siege shop. I can actually take a look and check. I don't know this information, but we can just check for argument's sake. Yeah, there he has 2 town centers. So he's going to have a villa lead. But again, a small villa lead with town centers is good, but having the initiative is also very good, especially with a hill like this in the middle of the map. This is very valuable from a positional perspective. And honestly, I'm a guy that doesn't really play positional Age of Empires too well in Castle Age. I usually like to get the eco approach going and then play positional more in the late imp with castles on the hill and the raids. But this is a nice change of pace for me, and I'm able to actually get a nice advantage just from this early position. And so you might be wondering why I made a Mangonel here instead of Scorpions, and the simple answer is I wanted the Mangonel to be able to push the stable, and I couldn't attack the stable with Knights anymore because he had Monks out. So notice how I'm not overdoing the Scorpions, but I'm not also underdoing them, and well, I lose the Mangonel either way, so hey, maybe the Scorpion would have been the better choice in the end. But notice I'm trying to attack in multiple areas, so even though he defended one front, he didn't get the walls in time on the left-hand side, and that just happens when you're the aggressor. Your opponent is bound to make mistakes. And again, this guy's top 100. He's very solid, 2K1 player, and you're still always able to find some small mistakes here. This has happened to numerous top players as well. It happened to myself, where there's so much pressure that the walls will eventually break to Knights. He does a really good reaction here to stop me from breaking in and killing more vills. But at the same time, I'm once again attacking from multiple areas, because I have that initiative, which is what Khmer is so good at getting. So again, no crazy damage happens. It's just me putting pressure and forcing small mistakes, and then booming behind it at home. So I'm going to quickly tab back to my base, showing you guys my 2TC setup, and soon I'll add a third. I can pretty much afford it now. But my main priority is just to get some damage in here. And this is where like I get my first blood of the game, where I'm able to get some nice villager picks here. 3-4 go down, and Mangonel goes down. And yeah, I think he does a good job defending here. Very reasonable from him to defend with monks and crossbows. But he's not going to really be able to reclaim this position ever, because I'm going to have Mangonels and Scorpions coming out. And he gets really unlucky with the conversions, man. He actually didn't get one there. I was so unlucky. He converted for so long. And there's another one later that he converts for like an hour and doesn't get it. I think it's this one? No. That was still a long one, though. Yeah, I think that was that one. He didn't get a conversion, even though he like changed targets. He did it well. And I'm gonna get like a really fast conversion on this guy as well. Yeah, and he's losing so much ground here, and he didn't even have Bodkin arrow actually. I didn't even realize that. Wow, he was really in a bad position. And actually, had I noticed he didn't have Bodkin arrow, I might have actually just ran under the TC and sniped those crossbows and ended the game, to be fair. But I'm glad I didn't. I played it safe, and by the way, I've been picking up relics all the while, even getting one from the corner, and now I'm just gonna heal my knights. And again, all this gameplay for me happened by just taking the initiative with the early game Khmer bonuses that you're able to do pretty much more often than not, gain some initiative. And the initiative doesn't have to be a forward siege push. The initiative can easily be faster TCs, which then translates into a villager lead, which then translates into an economy lead. It can also be like, I don't know, picking up relics from home, or just adding knights to control the game. They're really flexible. Getting initiative to castle stage is very, very important in this game, and Khmer do that very nicely. Probably one of the better civs at it, I would say. And once again, I'm going to lose a Mangonel trade, but at this point I'm up... I'm actually up only like 4 vills, but he has handcarts, so it's about the same economically. So again, my only advantage is really my army is better. He's still missing Bodkin. I never clicked the units valve. That's such a bad mistake for me. I'm disappointed in myself. I never clicked this units. I didn't know about that. But nonetheless, I'm going to be healing up and then just going in and out when I need to. And as you can see, I don't actually use more Scorpions. Although in this case, I would say like maybe it would have been better to mix in 3-4 Scorpions and try to force an all-in cast stage engagement. It might have been the better play. I just had to try and go for a faster imp here because I feel like I have a really reasonable amount of resources, I have a good economy, and I have a pretty big mass of knights that I can end the game with Cavalier. But maybe just adding more knights, adding more Scorpions at this point in the game, just to hold this position, might have been the better choice. And I actually think, in hindsight, if I were to replay this game, I would add 3 more Scorpions here, and then just go like, you know, 1 or 2 more stables, and add like, just for another 2-3 minutes, add more knights. And then just click up Imperial Age, like I said, in 2-3 minutes. And it would be a lot safer. As you can see, I allow him, because I go for a faster imp, I actually allow him to push back momentarily. And now I'm adding in stables. I go up to imp, I'm getting upgrades, and I don't add in more Scorpions yet, which I do believe is a mistake. I think adding a few Scorpions just to hold this position, and again, the 8 range Scorpions are just so obnoxious to deal with if you have pikemen and archers, so a few Scorpions to control the position would have been a really good choice for me, and it slipped my mind. Despite me talking about it a lot, it slipped my mind. I want to see what the last relic was. It was in the corner, okay. Just briefly. I go for a split, doesn't work, and I end up sacrificing my Mangonels here. He does some good micro, and I'm not really able to clinch and get a good shot off. But nonetheless, I expect him to have like some crossbows, maybe some pikemen, and again, Scorpions would always be good, but at this point I'm just going to go for a lot of Cavalier. I'm adding a lot of stables, and my idea is, even if he tries to reclaim this area, with my faster Cavalier, and I'll have enough for a castle, I can kill him with Cavalier and Trebs. And if I don't kill him, I'll get a very, very nice advantage to then set up my late game. Now, it's very important in this moment. Notice I'm playing, none of the Khmer options are on the table. The Ballista elephants, Scorpions. And why would they be? Why would I go mass Scorpions now? I can't afford it. Why would I go mass elephants? It doesn't make sense. Knights do the job much better and they're cheaper, and elephants would die much harder to pike. So why would I go into these late game options when I barely have the eco? So those options, don't get baited by them when you play Khmer. Bliss elephants, Scorpions, +1 attack. Use them sparingly, and then your late game composition, you want to make your way towards Scorpions, but later. Start playing crossbow knights in the castle age, use your eco advantage, play with a few Scorpions in castle age, just to gain some tech in your army, or some spice maybe. But yeah, overall your late game options are the fancy stuff for Khmer, but your early imp, your castle age options are going to be quite standard. More often than not, if the civ, in my opinion, is played correctly, this is how it would play out. And so yeah, like I said, if I added a few more Scorpions and a few more knights, he wouldn't actually be able to reclaim this hill. But now, since I went for the fast imp, I do allow him a chance to reclaim it. He gets his first lucky conversion of, well, lucky, decent conversion of the game, but at this point it's too late. If you take a look at the stats, 96 to 88 vills, he has barely any resources to go imp, and I'm already up to imp with a very, very strong army. So my plan is just to reclaim this hill with a castle and run him over with some Cavalier. And then if you consider my late game switch, I'm already taking light cav because I know I want Hussar. And then my long term switch, I might versus Vikings go heavy Scorpion. So my long term would be heavy Scorpion and Hussar. And that's exactly what I would want to get into if the game goes on longer. But for now, I'm using my early game eco advantage, my early game pressure, to get a nice little economy advantage, which then translates into a faster imp, which then translates into a military advantage. And I'm actually able to end the game here with a nice fight against his pikemen and crossbows. I'm missing the armor on these cavalier, but I have the attack, and I figured it was good enough. And I was right, it was good enough. I ended up killing his army, and I'm threatening the forward castle, which is just GG. And like I said, already transitioning, already thinking about late game. And at this point, I'm actually going to start expanding very soon. Yeah, expanding to the side with a castle here. But he's decided he's had enough, and he's going to call the GG. So, yeah, pretty much just early game advantage. Get that pressure in with the nice smooth build, stable, secure your map with houses and walls. And then with the faster castle age, which you'll normally have if you played correctly, you'll easily be able to have some sort of initiative either with economy or some sort of push. And your Scorpion is kind of like that flex option that lets you play castle age versus the strong archer civs. And if you're playing against cavalry civ, well, you have a really good eco bonus, so you can easily play like good eco, cav, monk, and be completely fine. So I don't know, one of the more flexible civs in my opinion. They have Arbalest if the game plays out that you have to play crossbows. They have Arbalest, and that's totally fine too. And then their late game, like I said, can be a little bit awkward, but you have a lot of options like Hussar. Even Hussar Arbalest can be decent, but you have Hussar heavy Scorpions. Hussar heavy Cav Archer can be decent as well, but I think stable in late game is your main tool, on Arabia at least. Definitely, and this is not my Hussar love in me just saying this, it's actually the best way to play the civ, I believe. Stable, Cavalier opening into light Cav Hussar, and then try to go into like Scorpions, Siege Ram, Trebs, Arbalest, Heavy Cav Archer, anything that can be like some sort of range unit to control the game after getting the raids and the mobility being used. So yeah, GG, not a bad game here at all. I think this is a relatively smooth game for me. I don't even think I played perfectly. I don't think this is like a perfect game or a particularly hard game for me to pull off. More or less just a standard siege push forward, and I made use of the timings that Khmer can get. So thanks for watching. Hopefully this video has been enjoyable and informative. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care and bye for now.